Before we start, I just want to welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today. It's the first of these kind of NIMS sessions that we are putting on and providing, and we are delighted that there was quite significant interest in it. I suppose we want to use it as an opportunity as well to down the line, if there's any other sessions that you would like us to focus on with regards to NIMS, to maybe put on some more webinars and go through different kind of skill sets and different aspects of the NIMS system that we can maybe work with you or work through with you. So if you have any questions or comments, please use the chat box. I'm obviously in presenter mode, but colleagues will flag these. We'll try and respond to them as they arise, in particular when Florina is doing the technical presentation, because she'll be moving through the different steps of the guide and the data extract. And rather than lose anyone in the process, you might have questions as that progresses. So we'll try and pick them up there and then. And of course, at the end of the session, we will have some time just to have some general, some scope for some general queries as well, and just touch on anything that we might not have covered as part of the guide today. We will use a parking lot, so obviously there are a number of aspects to NIMS, and maybe some feedback generally that you want to give, or other discussion points that you feel are relevant, but that might not be right for this session today. So to get the most out of today's session, we really want to go through that KPI section and demo the different aspects and how we extract that data and why we're using certain fields, and I suppose share that information with you so you can apply it locally as well. We have put in the dial-in details for the event in case your connection is poor or whatever, you can't dial in by phone. And we are recording this session because we want to make it available as a resource as well online. So for anybody that couldn't make the session or whatever. And I suppose if as we are going through the data extract, if the screen's too small and you want to just change the layout of the slide, so that it's obviously a bigger font in that, you just hover over the screen yourself and you'll see a little pop-up box saying layout, and you can adjust the layout as you are seeing the slides as well on your screen. Yeah. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So I suppose just to reiterate, you're very welcome. My name is Lorraine Schwanberg. I'm the Assistant National Director for Incident Management. I'm relatively new to HSE Corporate. Some of you probably be familiar that there was a restructure last summer within HSE Corporate, and some of the quality teams joining forces. So within my remit, there's incident management under the IMF. There's the open disclosure team as well, and NIMS as well now. So they work quite well together and complement one another. So that's obviously quite welcome. With me on the panel today, we have Florina, who's going to do the technical demonstration and has done a lot of the development around the data extraction pieces, and then developing the integrated guide as well. We also have Fiona Culkin, who is working as part of my team on the NIMS, various NIMS projects and improvement pieces that we're doing at the moment. So she's my right-hand woman for the technical support today. We also have Tara and Nolan, who's part of the NIMS team, who is really working on, well, again, a number of projects with regards to NIMS. We're really working quite hard with colleagues in different settings on the electronic point of entry rollout, so that we can, I suppose, improve access to the system, speed up the rollout of direct reporting onto NIMS and that, which we obviously see quite a few benefits around that. And I know Vanessa was going to be on the panel as well. Has she made it? But so Vanessa Dunn would be joining the panel. She's just having some technical difficulties, but she is really the face of the NIMS inbox. So we thought it would be quite nice for you to see the faces behind NIMS as well. We're going to talk a bit about the background to the changes of the KPIs. We're going to talk about data management generally, which I'm sure you'll be quite familiar with some of the principles behind it. We're going to discuss the date notified adjusted and what that means and how it's calculated. Florina's going to take us through the step-by-step data extract and the Excel template application. And then at the end, we're just going to touch on next steps. So thank you for completing our survey that we sent out, and I suppose it was encouraging to see that we're quite aligned. So the purpose for us of this session was really to talk about that technical element, how we get the data, how we apply the guide, and obviously it's encouraging to see that's why you're joining today. So we hope we meet those needs with the session. So I suppose just to give a bit of background to the changes to the KPIs, there was a working group set up last year, and certainly I can't take any credit for it. I suppose a huge thank you to our colleagues from the QPS operational setting who led on this piece of work, but they worked in conjunction with the previous quality assurance and verification office in kind of examining the KPIs that were being used at the time and how improvements could be made to those KPIs. And my understanding is that they would have engaged with a number of staff in the system and ascertained their feedback as well. They provided a report with a number of recommendations that went to the NPOG meeting, and most of those recommendations have been implemented, and that's why we've obviously made those changes to a number of those KPIs that we are going to run through today. So some of the key issues that the working group, I suppose, identified when they looked at the KPIs that were being used previously were about some of the challenges and how they were calculated and the basics of the KPI. For example, the fact that we were using the date of occurrence for the start date when we're calculating the 125-day turnaround time, rather than the date notified when the system or when new colleagues are actually becoming aware of the incident. Then there were some issues about certainly gaps in data entry and the challenges that was causing, and then around data validation issues. And these are all different aspects that we're hoping to address and work with you on. So the KPIs that we obviously focus on, these are ones that feature in the National Service Plan. Some of them are calculated monthly and others quarterly. We are collating data on a rolling basis now, and Florina will talk a bit more through that. The process for the KPIs, as I mentioned, we have made the big change of starting the clock, in particular for the 125 days from when you become aware of the incident. So it's the date notified and in brackets adjusted, which Florina will explain a little bit further in a minute. But we've retained the KPI in terms of measuring the harm level and the percentage of harm. Yeah, that's one of the previous KPIs that we are retaining, and that is measured on the time of occurrence, because we obviously want to see when that risk was there or when the issues were occurring, and that needs to be time stamped around occurrence, but otherwise it's date notified. So in line with making those changes, we developed the integrated guide, and we're hoping that this is a tool for you to use, I suppose, to explain how the data is extracted and give you exact step-by-step guide. So when we refer to the guide, it's the integrated guide. It is up on our website as well, and in our last slide, we've included the link for that. You see within the guide, it also has in the appendix the schedule of when the data is pulled and that. I know the Excel spreadsheet helps with that, but again, I suppose this is just giving you the kind of timetable to have at your ready if you wish. And then in the appendix, we've also included what the changes are, what the previous KPIs were, and how they're framed now going forward. So we all know good data matters. For us, with regards to NIMS, obviously we feel that it's important to have the right data to help support learning, to support improvement, to support you in your analysis and decision making around different incidents. I think at a national level, our focus is very much on the learning side. So we do want to have a system approach and kind of have that understanding and shift from silo to system learning. And again, working with different subject matter experts in that, seeing where there are trends so that we can kind of focus on our quality improvement work as well. Obviously, everything is anonymous to us. And the focus is on improvement and learning. We know that good data needs to be accurate, timely, relevant, and complete. And this is, I suppose, the starting point of working with you on kind of developing the NIMS system further and improving the data quality around it. So what are the current KPIs? I suppose the first one, which has been changed, the name of the KPI, as you will see it on the service plan, is described as the percentage of comprehensive and concise reviews completed within 125 days of notification to the senior accountable officer of a Category 1 incident. The description of how that is pulled, the percentage of compliant Category 1 incidents in the selected period where a service user was involved. So it's very much a patient safety incident where no further review was deemed necessary. So you know when you have your review fields, there's the option of say a decision might have been made at the SIM that no further review is required, which is obviously in a few cases, obviously mostly these will develop to system analysis review, but we exclude the ones where it's recorded as no further review required. And to be compliant, the selected incidents need to have a review completed and accepted by the Commissioner. We go by the date review accepted by the Commissioner, and it should be no more than 125 days from the date of notification, just the first date the service became aware of the incident. So again, I suppose just re-emphasizing why completion of certain fields within the NIMS system is important, because they very much inform the KPI. So this is one of the ones that we present quarterly then as part of this, as calculated quarterly. So the name of the KPI is percentage of reported incidents entered onto NIMS within 30 days of notification of the incident. Now, of course, we would hope that that turnaround time would be much quicker, that as soon as we become aware of the incident, that it is logged on NIMS. We know that there are some process challenges, which we'll obviously be working on with colleagues on and getting it onto the system. But certainly this is the metric that's being used for the National Service Plan. And you would hope that we would obviously achieve this target in particular. So the description really is that the percentage of compliant incidents out of the total incidents notified in the reporting period. To be compliant, an incident needs to be logged on NIMS within 30 days or less from the date the service becomes aware of it. Should be more timely. We feel that rolling out the electronic point of entry reporting, for example, this example will almost make this KPI redundant in the long term. And then, of course, we've retained extreme and major incidents, so where the level of harm or severity has been recorded as extreme or major as a percentage of all incidents reported as occurring. So it's quite straightforward. That one is the percentage of Category 1 incidents where that's been defined as the harm out of a total number of incidents reported for the included locations. Okay. And for the more technical elements, I'm going to hand over to Florina, and I'll obviously join the panel again at the end if you have some general questions as well that we can touch on. Okay, thank you. We're physically switching as well, so if you see a bit of shuffling, we're still trying to do our COVID protections by staying at a little bit of a distance from one another. So I'm just going to make space for Florina.
Okay, hi everybody. Just before we go into actually demonstrating the NIMS extract, a few words about the new process. So we feel that this new approach where each service can put their own data and they can mirror what we have and see if there are any differences, we're very happy to engage and see why that happens, and we want to be very transparent about everything that we do, and we think that everybody should be very comfortable with the way we actually report on their data. So the new process will not only allow you to go back and see where you have issues and maybe retrofit what needs to be changed in system, but also to see where most frequent issues can appear and maybe be more aware and maybe improve the way that the data is entered in the first place. Okay. So under this new approach, so we have the data extract. Each service has visibility of their own data, the data that we will use. It's a consistent approach, so we are all using the same steps. We should all have the same result. For the data manipulation, we have this automated calculation that we're very happy about, because it replaces a manual process that was prone to maybe some small errors that would take a lot more time to spot and to correct. And also, if we, with the new template, we have the potential to actually identify data quality issues, not just what's already set up in the Excel, but we can always set up new tests, and you can work on your own using the template, of course, if you want to see different things about your data. We provide support for using these templates and for exploring potential solutions in connection to the data that we use for KPIs. There are a few technical improvements that we are pursuing. For instance, we are aware that the clock starts for category 1 incidents when at the date notified, and if they are reclassified, the clock should start later. So we are pursuing this with NIMS, and we will looking to have a date stamp for when the incident was reclassified to start the clock there. So this is in the pipeline with NIMS. And also we have also in the pipeline with NIMS the introduction of a test for the date notified, and that hopefully will make this date notified adjusted redundant, so we'll drop that once the test is in. And of course, networking, we see this new approach not just from a technical perspective, but we very much want to engage with everybody involved in working with the data and with an interest in NIMS, so we can build a network. Okay, did I jump a slide? Okay, so today notified adjusted. As I mentioned, all this text, you have it in the guide in Annex 3. It's a temporary measure that we are working with until that test is available in the system. So this won't be necessary. The date notified basically is the first date when the service becomes aware of an incident. And we're very happy that be very different from the date of the incident. We don't have a problem with that at all. It's just that in some cases now in NIMS, we have the date notified later, the date the incident was created in NIMS. So that makes very little sense that the incident was notified after it was created in NIMS. Or we also can have a situation where the date notified is after the SAO was notified. So obviously, at least at that date, the service was aware. So the calculation, the logic of the calculation is that we look if the date notified field is empty. If it is empty, if it's missing, usually it's not, but in few cases it is, then we will look to calculate date notified adjusted as the first available date between the date the incident was created and the date notified to SAO. So we don't include in this calculation in this case at all the date when the incident happened. If the date notified is not empty, then we look to see if it's the same as the date of incident, then we just use it. We don't have a problem at all. And if not, if it's different, then we calculate the date notified adjusted as the we look if the date notified adjusted is before the incident was created and before the date was notified to the SAO. And if that's the case, again, we use just the date notified that exists in the system. And in case that is not the case, so if we have, for instance, the incident create date before it was notified, or if we have the date notified to the SAO before the notified date, then we use this first date that is available in the system. And as I mentioned, there's work now with NIMS, so we will have a test in the system. So when you put the date notified in at the step of recording the incident, then we won't be able to record a date notified that is after the date notified to SAO or later than the date when the incident is actually created. And obviously, if we will move to the electronic point of entries when it's basically instant. When you record the incident, it's automatic in the system the same date, so it should solve all these problems. Okay, so now I'm gonna go into NIMS to demonstrate the extract. So I'll take a few moments to open the site. What I want to say is that in the guide, you have a document called Data Extract and Manipulation. And it's a step-by-step description of the data extract. Now we have access to Crystal reports. We see this reports tab in NIMS. Not everybody has access to the reports tab, but it's not a problem. You can get the same result with views. The only limitation is that if your view returns more than 5,000 records, you will only be able to extract the first 5,000 records. So I will basically open two browsers side by side, one to demonstrate the way we work with the report tab, and the other one to go in parallel and to demonstrate how we work on the views tab. So then it doesn't really matter if you have access to reports or not, it's the same process. And at the end, when the view is finalized, then if you see that it returns more than 5,000 records, then you'll have to email NIMS at hac.ie and request access to Crystal reports. Can you see it? No. It's starting to share, so what can I do? Yeah, sorry, we have some technical difficulties. It's coming. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see it, and now it's really small, so it will definitely be better if you can just go to layout and choose full screen. So then it will. What's wrong with my sound? So as I said, I opened two browsers side by side, and in the first one I will use the reports, and in the second one I will go with the views. Now, if you have the data extract and manipulation document, it's included in the guide. If you just go there and you follow it step by step, it should guide you with no issues. So I go in the reports, I go and open a new report, which will be an incident report. You have this print screened in the guide. Give a name. And also you can, it's best to remember to, and this is print screened, I'm sure, yes, it's print screened in the document, switch to comma delimited or Excel. Like for me, it's easier to get it comma delimited because I get a huge volume of data and it's smaller in comma delimited, but if you have a low volume of data, you can go with Excel, it works just fine. And from views, you will only be able to export in Excel. So that's where we are. And I'll go to select fields now. And now I'm switching to the views to get to the same point. So from this little wheel here, we will go and create a new view. Okay, we'll give it a name. And then I go to select columns, which is the same as select fields in the report. Am I not loud? Okay. So I'll just delete what I have here and I will add exactly as per the guide. So in the guide, you have a list of the fields that need to be entered and the order that you want to enter them. The order is important because once you get the extract, you just copy paste it in Excel and the columns should match. So it's important to keep the same order. So the first field would be record number. It appears here when you work in reports, and we already have it here, but if you don't have it, you can just add it. And I'll go to add the next one. As per the list, we have date notified. So I just add it, and then the same here, add more. There we go. So it's not complicated. You see, like, probably takes 10 minutes altogether, and you only need to do it once. When you come back the next month to get your extract, you will only have to change the dates, and you don't have to do all of this again. So you only have to do this once, although it's a bit tedious, but it only takes 10 minutes, so it's not too bad. Then we added the date of the incident. And if you're not sure what you added in the reports, you just click on it and it will show you exactly where you are. So no stress there. Obviously, some colleagues are very experienced in this. I just apologize for going through this so slowly, and not everybody's at the same level, so I hope this will be useful. Now we have incident create date. And we also included the description of the field. So if you look into the guide, you have a column called identification, so you can make sure it's the correct field. You see here, like, it has a code, so you can see that you got the correct code, because some attributes, they have very similar names, and I should confess that it happened to me to mix them, so you don't get the proper result if you do that. So it's easy to get confused. Now we use incident create date, and you will see later that we have a condition that this should not be empty. And once we put this condition in, the incident create date is not unassigned. That means that we exclude the claims. So the state claims agency is using a very similar field, but it's a different field. Is it create date for them, Fiona? Create date, right? So we go with incident create date. Okay, then we have date notified to SAO. Again, I will not be talking now. I'm just focused to put the fields in. But if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. So you see in the views, you have division, description, and division code. We always go with description. Unfortunately, when you work in views, you don't see the code of the field the way you can see it in reports, but we always go with description. Now, I don't know if you noticed, you can get this message in the reports that you exceeded the page. It really doesn't matter, especially if you use Excel or comma delimited to get your results. So don't worry, I will switch to the next row just to keep it tidy. It really doesn't matter, you can just put them all there. So we take B, C, E, F, and G. So I'll add the same here. Okay, so we finished the location. Then we add date accepted by the commissioner. Level of review. Always go with description. Okay. Severity rating. So you have a print screen in the guide for all these steps. So all you need to do is follow the guide and document all the data extract and manipulation. Okay, then category of incident. Am I too low, not loud enough? And who was involved? Myself. Okay. Next. Incident hazard category. Okay. Haphazard. Now, I don't know if you noticed, probably yes, because you have more experience with the system reviews. The names of the fields sometimes change. So I suppose we had before approach to review was called level of review detail, and now it's called approach to review. If you have a report set up or a view set up, it doesn't matter if the field name change. If they're changing, you are using the code of the field will not change. So in views, only if you don't have the view already set up, and if you're not able to find an attribute, maybe the name was changed, but we can definitely go back and identify it. So we can help with that if that happens. So sub-hazard type. Then brief summary. We are almost there. And this only needs to be done once. Now I hope if you're watching this, I hope you have an option if you want to try to do it with me. So if you have any difficulties, you can ask on the spot. So hopefully you can log into your NIMS and you can try to do it step by step with me if you're gonna look at doing it after the session. And if you have any questions, just ask in the chat. So I'll stop and answer your questions. Outcome at the time of the incident. Additional outcome. Okay, so we're on track, level of independence required. Okay, 2 more fields will be done here. Okay, so we've added all the fields. Now, if you are in report, you go to select data. Under the select fields, if you are in view, you go to select data above the select columns. And now we add the same conditions. So you have the conditions listed in the document, and also you have print screens. So whatever is easier. The first condition is that the incident create date is not unassigned, and this is important because this will exclude the claims. just switch is not unassigned, and that's fine. Okay, now the next one. The division is not, so we put division is not unassigned, the same here. So it's similar, it doesn't really matter if you work in views or in reports. The only difference is that views are limited to 5,000 records when you try to extract your data. And next one, the division is not national corporate services. Equal to there, the same here. Okay, that's the second condition. Then we go to location B. So the first condition is that location B is not unassigned. Same here. Is not equal to, and now you don't have a drop down, so you have to type in. So just be careful to type. You don't have typos. You can copy paste from the guide. Is not equal to, same thing. Okay, that's not. And we have one more condition for location B. Here should be is not equal to there. So then we go to the, we have 6 conditions for location C. Again, don't be put off by this because you only have to do it once and then you only go back and change the dates. And I hope you're doing this with me so you would know if it doesn't work for you. So first of all, it's not unassigned. Okay, let's put equal to national forensic. So we switch to C. Okay. Okay, and I need to add the unassigned here as well. Okay, moving forward, formal conditions on C. So you can always copy paste from the guide. This is the last one. Now, it may be that you only have access to a location that already excludes all of this. So maybe if that's the case, you don't need to put all these conditions, but I wouldn't know. So I would just put them to be on the safe side and to make sure that we get the same data. We definitely need to exclude them because we would extract them. Okay, then we have at point 5, incident hazard category. Is not equal to dangerous occurrences, and same in the view. Okay, and now the maybe tricky part. We go to add group. Okay, and you have this in point, it's in the print screen. So at point 1.9, it shows this step. So we change, we leave it any, we change this to any. I add the group here in the view the same. I change it to any, so any condition. And then we will add the 4 dates. So add condition, and the first date will be date notified. The second date is incident create date. The third one is, it really doesn't matter the order, it's just, I'm just following the guide. And the last one, they notify to SAO. So all of these need to be is between, and you'll have two values. Now the values, you have them in the annex, and also you have them in Excel, whatever's easier. So just put it like that, and then I'll do the same in the form, the view, and then we'll go and grab some dates here. So the same condition here. The first one, date notified. Second one, incident create date. Third one, date of incident. And the last one, they notify to SAO. And the same, is between, is between. So you'll get 2 dates. Okay, and now let me just open the document, the guide, to do integrated guide. You'll see the date. Just bring this into the other screen. So here in the annex, we can look, for instance, if it's March now, as it's March, we're gonna work on the reporting month February. So the start extract date will be 1st of November 2020. So just take note, that's November 2020. And the last date is 28th of February this year. So that's exactly the days that I'm going to use in the report. And going forward, once I set up the report or the view, the only thing that I'm going to change in the future is the start date and end date. So back here, back in business. So we go from 1st of November 2020, which I can just copy across. Here as well, because it's the same thing. Okay. And then the last date is 28th of February 2022. Okay. Now, if you would notice in the guide, we have a pro tip. So for some months, when you don't have a quarterly report, you can, but it's not mandatory, you can exclude the incidents that are not category 1 and service user. No, you don't have to do that. If you want to see all your data, that's fine. It will not have any impact on the Excel or on the reporting. But in my case, if I have like a huge volume of data, I may just want to follow the pro tip. Now, to keep things simple, I won't do that bit now. It's not mandatory, it won't affect the report in any way. So if you're not very comfortable working with reports, maybe just ignore that pro tip. Okay, so that's that. Now we go, as per the document, we go to other info here in the report, where we include incidents to yes. Okay, and that's everything that we need. In the view, you don't have that. Now I'm gonna save the view. Okay, and I'm gonna save the report as well. Okay, so now if I'm in the report, I can click run report, and because I'm running the report on a volume of data, it will take a while. And then for the views, so and I have my view here, should be, yes, demo. That's my view, and I can see all the conditions that I included are here. Now it's still calculating. See, it says my total is 230,000 incidents. So obviously I cannot download them from the view. I need to use the report. But if your total, I don't know if you notice the total is here on the bottom. If your total is below 5,000 records, you don't need to go and request access to Crystal reports. You can just download from here. You can just click export, and I can still export from the view. I will just get 5,000 records, no more. So you click export and you get your records if they're like less than 5,000. So that's with the view. Once you click export, you will get them in Excel. Just click export now. So that's it. That's my export. Now, it won't do me any good now because it only holds 5,000 records. So I'll have to wait for the report to finish. So I'll just close the views. I hope if anybody has a question on the views before I close it. I don't see it, so that's fine then. Okay. So in the guide, we have this data extract and manipulation document included. Now, this is the one that we want to open. And this is where you have all the steps that I just showed. Okay, so here in point 1.6, add the following conditions. So you have is not, and so on and so forth. Okay, and the dates you're gonna get from the annex, as I said, annex 1 in the guide. So the dates for each month, you have them here, as the dates will change every month, but the other conditions will not change, so they will stay as they are. And for like the colleagues who have no access to reports, to Crystal reports, and maybe if they don't need that access to Crystal reports, they can just do the work we did in views. You have an appendix here in the data extract and manipulation. It's a bit, let me see, at the very end, you have this appendix 1, workaround for step 1, that's building the report. if you have no access to Crystal reports. So if you open this document, you have just what we did now, the steps in the view, where you create a new view and you do all the work that we did in the view. So with pre-screens and step-by-step, same fields, same conditions, you have them listed. And once you finish this step, then you go back to put the data in Excel. Is that okay? Okay, so hopefully, like, the report is not over. You see, it says stop report now. Don't ever do that. I suppose you know as well, it kind of ruins it for you for the whole day if you stop a report. I don't know if it's only me, but it happened to me that I had to create a new report just because I clicked on the stop report. Let it go. Now, once the report is finished, I hope I'll be able to show you this a little bit later when it's finished. But the fact is that the same way I downloaded the data from the view, it will be the same. I'll just click, and I have, I think, the print screen in this document, just because it's a bit slow here. So here you have the image. So once it's done, it says your report was generated. So I click on view report, view, the limited format, and that will download the file for me. So the file that I will get, and hopefully I'll be able to show you that in NIMS, in downloads, I prepared a file that is artificial data. So all of this is just made up data, but this is how it looks once you download it. So that's how it looks. So once it downloads, that's what you get. Now this is artificial data, so don't worry about anything that is shown here. The numbers are not real, the data are not real, nothing is real. It's all artificial, just for the demonstration, but that's exactly what you get. So once you have your data, what you need to do, you go to your guide, and where you have the data extract and manipulation file, you also have the Excel template. So I would say open that template and save it somewhere on your computer. I have it on my computer actually. And yeah, save it with a different name every time you work on it. I know it's very basic, but otherwise you won't have the blank template. So that's my blank template. I'm just going to go copy paste the data. It's from A to AA, then down all the way. That's it. And paste it from A2, and you have that mentioned in the guide. Now, depending on how much data you have, it may take a while. So I think it's better for me just to stop Excel now. It's never more than a few minutes, and that is for us, and we get all the national data. So it should be better at local level. If it's stuck, then I will just open it again. It worked. I was just about to close it. So that's it. I copy pasted my data. Now the Excel is doing some calculations. Going and close my source. So the first step is done. Now the easy part is that you have the reports done now. You have to make sure that the data selection. So let's say I said I want to see the report for February. I need to have my date set to February. So what I'm doing now, I go and say, okay, let's see the 125 days for community. Now, obviously, if you're downloading data for your location, you will only see your location. This is, again, artificial data. So the numbers that we see here, they don't mean anything. It's just that they are automatically calculated. So because I set the date to February, you see it starts at November 2020 and ends at October. And that's exactly what the guide says in the annex. So for February reporting month, 125 days, it will be from 1st of November to 26th of October. And I'll show you in Excel where you can check that, but indeed the other dates in October, they are excluded from the calculation. Reason being that you need to allow for 125 days. So that end date varies a little bit month by month, but it's automatically calculated, so you don't need to worry about it. Now, if I would, now because it's artificial data, I can switch the month. Usually, if you switch, you put the wrong month and you actually do the download correctly, you may have empty months because that's not the month that you're reporting on. But because I have artificial data, I can switch the month just to see a different month. The Excel automatically calculates the fact that in February there is no 30 days report due, and also there is no percentage SI report due. So you will just have that the reports are not due in this month. And if I open a template for them, let's say also community, it's just not due then. Okay, and I can see the other one, the percentage, also not due. Now if I change the date, see if I have, for instance, January, see, it calculates. Okay, so it lets me know that actually the 30 day now is due in January. So you will see that the template is now populated. So the calculation is automatic. All you need to do is copy paste your data and then you will get the calculation. And of course, this one is not due, but if I change the date to March, it's calculating, so it's not instant because I have a high volume of data. But now this template is populated and the other one says that it's not due because I changed the month to March. So the reports themselves, they're very easy. So they're automatically calculated. What can be more interesting for you now, like of course, if you get the report from us and we have some numbers and then you look at your own report and you have different numbers, that's the moment when it makes sense for us to check, why we're getting different numbers. And we're very happy to engage with you and to make sure that we are getting the correct numbers. Now in the Excel, if you go into the tab where you have all the information, you can see, for instance, in date notified, if you select by color yellow, you will get the records where the date notified adjusted is different from your field date notified. I can make it a little bit bigger so we can see why that happens. So the date notified, for instance, again, this is all fake data, but it's similar to real data. So this is a scenario that can happen. So we have the date notified is 25th of January, that's fine. The date of the incident a few days before, perfectly fine. The incident was created actually a year later, not a problem. But the date that when it was notified to the SAO is the 21st of January. So obviously it was known to the service on the 21st of January. So for us, we will use the date notified adjusted as the 21st of January. There is no real change here because it was in January, it will still be in January. And since it's January 2020, it's excluded anyways from our report. But as an example, why the date notified adjusted is different from the date notified that is recorded here. So once we will have that test in NIMS, it will not allow us to record the date notified that is later after the incident was notified to the SAO or the incident was created in NIMS, whichever happens first. And I mentioned that this is excluded from the calculation because it's, oops, it's outside the period of reporting period, and that happens because this is artificial data. So you can see here on column AE, it says this is excluded. So you can check what's included and what's excluded. Let's say I want to check what's included and what's excluded in the calculation of 125 days. That means that I have to go on the column level of review request required. Then I make sure to leave out the local review and the SMT, so they're not included. Then it should be category 1. And service user. Client. And I don't remember where we are with the period. So 1st of December now. The 26th of November, because I changed to March. November, so that's what I'm going to do. Go into table. Now we have the date notified adjusted on the column AC, and I will explain just in a second what the minimum date is. So I need to take 1st of December 2020, so all December, and then from 2021 I need to take only up to November, so I don't need December, and in November I stop at the 26th. Okay. Okay, so let's just go with the, we calculate based on calculated location because we extract everything, and in some cases we have collocated locations. So we calculate what should be in the CHOs. Like we have, I'll show you, we have an exception template. I'm going to say I just take the CHOs. So 138 records included. That's it. See? So I know exactly what's included, no other than these records. And I can see exactly what's included if I want to see, okay, well, in template, it says I have 3 incidents in CHO4 in December. Was that? So then I can go and adjust my date to December. Okay. And I'm only interested in, so that's my life, everything is slow. Calculated location, I said CHO4. So those are the 3 incidents. So I can go in and have a look. Obviously, it will be easier at local level because you don't get, you know, what you don't need to review. So I have now, because this is artificial data, we don't have the short description of the incident, but you always get that from the system. I just deleted, I mean, there was no point in me generating Lore Ipsum type of data for that field and making the document huge. So that's one thing that we can see, you know, exactly what incidents are calculated here. So there's no mystery about them. Another thing I said I'm going to show you is about that minimum date. So the logic that I presented for the date notified adjusted. Now that's the minimum date that you would get. It says, okay, if the date notified is different from the incident, let's see which one for, what is the first date that we have? Is it the date notified? Is it the date when the incident was created? Or is it the date when was notified to the SAO? So that would be the minimum date. Usually, if it's not a data problem, that's your date notified. But you can select by color here. And if this date is before the incident happened, then we're going to use the date of the incident. Hopefully all these problems will disappear when we'll have the test in the system. But right now, just to show you what happened here, the incident happened in April. It was created in August, and they notified 27th of May. So obviously, when we calculated the, because it's the next year, 2021, when we calculated the minimum date, it turns out that, oh, the minimum date is the incident create date because it happened before the notified, but that cannot be because the incident is after that. So we still use the day notified. I hope it's not confusing, but that certainly makes sense not to use a date. See? So the first time when we knew about the incident, we said, okay, the date notified cannot be before it happened. Now you will see easily here, probably it's just a mistake. It was the wrong year selected. So what should happen here? You should go back in, put that to 2021, and everything will make sense. These are very, very rare. So I put 2 here just to show you that it can happen, but we don't really get this. So if you don't have anything here, if you don't see an option to select by the color, it means that you don't have that error in your data. So don't worry at all about it. It's very, very rare. Now, the same way that we can put a marker on a column if we want to see if something happens, the same way we can put more markers. We're not sure what you're interested in, but we definitely can add markers. And we have a few calculated columns at the end. And they don't look that weird in the real data. So because this is artificial data, they look a bit weird. But you can see the difference between the date notified adjusted and the date of the incident. You can see the date notified adjusted, the difference between the date notified adjusted and the date notified. You can see the difference between the date created and the date notified adjusted. So in some cases, if you, for instance, see a difference that is, let's say, almost a year, 300 days or so, it's easier to spot that probably was the wrong year they're picked for that date. Now, this looks weird because it's not real. But we had to produce some artificial data to be able to show you for GDPR concerns, obviously. Do we have any questions so far?
There's another one in there, and it's wondering, is there any reason why the column headings are not included in the Crystal Report CVS format? So why they haven't come off in the CSV format?
The names of the columns?
Yes.
That's how the system exports. But the idea is that you have to make sure you put the attributes in the correct order. You get me? So when you put your attributes in the report, you need to follow the order. So if I switch the dates between them, the Excel will think, I have the date of the incident, but it's actually the date notified to the SAO. So there's no way for Excel to know. And even if you would have the titles of the columns, you still, you still have to copy paste. So the best, that's how it exports. Now, if you export, I think if you export in Excel, it will give you the titles. Let me just see the download from the view. Let me open the download from the view. I was never bothered by that, but let's see. So there, the export from the view. You see, you have the names of the. Oops, yeah. But so yeah, that was the export from the view. So in the export from the view, you do have the column titles. Still, you need to be careful to only copy the information starting on the first row and down. So don't put the titles, because obviously it will mess the template a little bit, because it will make no sense. That first row can be seen as anything, but there's no way for the Excel to know that you copy paste titles. So the values would be wrong. So if you download in comma separated values, then you don't have the titles. That's just how the template works. And if you download in Excel, then you would have the titles. But you need to copy from the first row, not the titles. Okay, the safest way to go is to make sure that you put the fields in the correct order, and they don't, the report stays as it is. So once you take the time to set it up, it just remains there. So all you need to go now in, if I want, I go into my report. It's still not done. It should be like that. I know I stopped the report at some point. I regretted it. I don't know, maybe refresh the page, see what happens. Okay, so the report was generated, but the page was not. So view report, comma delimited, I have it now. Now let's see, this is the next month. And I just want to go in and change my report for the next month's extract. What I would do, I would go first into the annex to see, okay, now we are in April, I want to generate the report for March. What is my first date? What is my last date? I go into the report and into select data, and I don't touch anything but my dates. Change the dates, save, and run the report again. And that's all you need to do. So you only set it up once, and then you run it as many times as you need. And for the same month, you don't have to change the date. So let's say you run the report, and then you get the report from us, and there are some differences. Obviously, we need to see what happens. It may be the time. It may be that maybe, you know, we did the extract later in the day and you did the extract earlier in the day, and there are a few incidents that were added in between. We can set up a date and a time when we do the extract at the same time, and then we see if there are any differences where the differences would be coming from. So we've done this before. Many thanks to the colleagues who helped us. So I think it's easy enough, and it's quite informative both for us and for you. So very happy to do that if there's a need. Okay, so that's kind of it. And as I was saying, you can add your own columns. Now, if you have a huge volume of data, don't go in and add another column once you have the data in. It may crash your computer, or you will wait forever. If you know what you want to see and you want to add another column, then I would suggest you add it in the template when it's empty, and then when you populate it, it will just be calculated. It's really easy. You just use the fields that are already in the, let's say I want to see the difference. I'm just using a column that's already in. As I explained, once you have the data in, it tends to crash if you add a new column, but you can always add a new column. So I may say that I want to see the difference between, the difference between the date, the day notified and when the review was accepted. For instance, you have a calculated column here to say if it was compliant or not compliant. If it's selected for 125 days, you don't have a column to say, you know, how many days, to see, you know, maybe it's not compliant, but it's only over with 3 days, or it's not compliant and it's over with 100 days. Maybe you want to see that. It obviously doesn't matter from the point of view of the KPI it's compliant or not. But you can add that here to say, well, if the date is not empty, then see what's the difference. So you can put that in using the field. So suppose. So you have the columns here, so you can just pick whatever you're interested in. So you can say if date review accepted by commissioner, that's the one that we're interested in. If that's not empty, then calculate the difference between this date and the date notified adjusted, because that's the date that we consider. And otherwise, don't put anything in. And I'm so blind, I don't see what's missing there.
You did that same.
Oh no. And I'm missing that. Otherwise, it says that that's they notified just that one. And it will automatically calculate for the whole column. And you see, we leave out the blanks, and then you can get your numbers. So you can always add. Now I use the column that was already there just because I know I have a lot of data, even if it's the fake data, and it tends to crash the computer. But you can add a column. You can email us if you want to add a column, or if you want to see something in your template and you don't know exactly how to add that column. Very happy to help with that. Just technical questionnaires on the data that is relevant for the KPIs. I suppose that's kind of. No, okay. Yeah, and I mentioned the exception. Maybe I just show it. So because we work at the national level, we will export all data. Now we have collocated locations, like for example, the group 1, Connolly, external works, Sycamore, that is actually mental health, and this should be mapped to CH09. So with the help of colleagues in community, we mapped all of this. So automatically when I get something like this in my table, it's calculated on the calculated location. That's not relevant for you, because in the sense that you would only get the locations where you have access to, but it can be relevant. If I get different numbers from you, it may be that I'm including a location that shouldn't be yours. So we can identify that, and then the calculated location will fix that. Let me see. So this is an example. This is how it looks for me. It really doesn't matter for you, because you would only get what you should see. But it is relevant if you think I'm including something that should not be mapped to your location. We will agree to put it as an exception, and it should be mapped where it belongs. So yes, we hopefully we don't, but it's not impossible to include some records that are actually collocated with your location, and they should be mapped somewhere else. So for instance, here we have the group 3, whatever, St. Luke's psychiatry, and is mapped to CH05. Now, this is only relevant for our records and your records to match. Obviously, the community will get it as they should. But if I don't know about this, my reports will put it under hospital group, which would be wrong. So for us, it was important to include these exceptions, probably more relevant for community, but it's not impossible. You know, if we have some differences between our numbers, it may be that we need to look closer at the locations. So apart from this, we have the centralizer that we also circulate every month, and it's also populated with whatever is relevant in that month, and that this part that is included in the performance profile. So that's how it's included in the performance profile, and you would also get it in the report that we circulate. So what's interesting is the numbers are calculated again for each template, so they're not picked up from the previous template in the new template. So if there are any differences between the templates, that's also interesting, and you can look at that. There shouldn't be any differences, but that's something that if you spot it, it can be very helpful. And if you have any questions, do we have any questions, Fiona?
No, I think I've managed to answer most of them, but probably the most common one is just about the availability of the slides and the recording after the session.
Yes.
So we will include that on our website. That might take us a few days to do the download and subsequent upload. So we'll drop you all an email to let you know when it's available, and we'll pop the slides up with it as well. So that's probably the most common question.
So we are done then here. I'll switch back to the presentation. Oh, I should mention the training. Yeah. Okay. So just a quick mention that there is training available on HAC Land for incident review. So we recommend that training, although I think it will be revisited now and it will be updated. One thing that you may notice when you go and do that training is that it's important to make sure that you fill in all the fields in the incident. So sometimes we probably have situations where the review was completed and everything is fine at local level, but we can't see that in NIMS because maybe the date when the commissioner accepted the review is not included in NIMS. So that unnecessarily skews the situation in some locations. And also maybe there's a case where a decision exists that no further review is necessary, and that again is not recorded in NIMS. So those records are unnecessarily included in the calculation. So it will be better to have accurate data and to include only what is due, and to have all those details, not just for how it looks or for the KPI, just to make sure that we have the accurate data in the system, and it would support us better to create national reports or whatever insights we can gather from the data. Should we switch now? Okay, thank you.
Just move the slide on. Just move the slide on.
Slide, okay.
So again, just a reminder that the chat box is active. So if you have any questions, you can pop them into the chat box and we'll endeavour to answer them. While we had a group of NIMS users here, we decided to use the opportunity maybe to outline some of our priorities and our next steps for NIMS for 2022. So first and foremost is always our system development and the technical development of the system. And that's continuing to work with our partners in State Claims Agency to advance the system. And also to ensure that we are meeting the functionality that you guys as the end users want out of the system. Sorry, this is something up there.
Put it on mute, but I don't find it.
I suppose another key priority area as well for us is the HICRA report, which some of you may already be aware of, but for those of you who aren't, in May of 2021, HICRA published a review into the information practices around NIMS, and there was probably 3 key themes of recommendations out of that. They related to governance, leadership and management of NIMS in its totality, recommendations around information governance, and also how we use that information and the quality of the information on NIMS. So it's a key priority area for us in 2022 to implement those recommendations. Another key piece of work that Lorraine mentioned at the beginning of the presentation was around electronic point of entry and the continued rollout of electronic point of entry through the HSE. And again, to just touch on that very briefly, for those of you who may not know what electronic point of entry, it is essentially removing the functionality of having to use paper-based incident reporting and bringing it onto NIMS and doing an electronic point of entry. To date, we have 3 sites that have gone live with electronic point of entry. Should you or your site have any interest in electronic point of entry, we would love to hear from you, so you can drop us in an email at nims@hse.ie. We have sites that we're actively engaging with for future sites over the next couple of months, but we are setting and hope to roll it out throughout the HSE. So please get in touch with us again at nims@hse.ie. And also we hope in 2022 to continue this networking piece and meet with you guys as NIMS users to understand and to connect you in terms of a network of how we can improve and advance and share learning of NIMS throughout the system. So we have a little evaluation after this today's presentation that we're going to send around, and one of the questions, there's only 5 within that evaluation, is some topics for future training events. So please send us in any comments or any suggestions you would like us to focus on maybe as the year moves on. And again, as always, nims@hse.ie is the best way to get in touch with any of us. Vanessa, our fantastic NIMS administrator, will deal with all queries as they come in. So thank you very much for coming on today's session. It was great to see you all, and I'll hand back to Lorraine for any closing comments you may have.
Thank you. Yeah, so just echoing Fiona's feedback and about our next steps. We have big plans, but we want to work with you, make improvements to the system. And I suppose, aside from linking in with us, I'm sure for all the NIMS users, data managers out there, it'd be nice to kind of create a network between different parties and between yourselves as well. So we're happy to facilitate some of that. So do get in touch with us, give us feedback. Apart from a few technical issues, hopefully if we have another one, it will be quite smooth running and your feedback will be most welcome. Okay, from all of us, thank you. Hope you have a great day and a lovely weekend.